The CEO of ChatGPT's parent company recently talked about writing code by hand as if it were something people did in some ancient civilization we barely remember. And I get why that sounds exciting to some, but as someone who spent 25 years in web development and has worked with these AI tools since they launched, I know something different. And companies themselves are finally discovering this, that replacing programmers with AI doesn't magically create better software. It creates faster messes, bigger maintenance problems, and talent pipelines with nobody left to understand what the machine just built. So we're going to talk about why this AI replaces developers' stories falling apart fast, and why human judgment is about to become more valuable than ever. Let's review what actually happened, because it's easy to frame this story as AI bad, humans good. This reduction misses the actual story, which has to do with feedback loops. In software development and in most knowledge work, junior employees aren't just cheap labor, they're a feedback system. They ask the questions that expose bad assumptions, they surface parts of the architecture that nobody bothered to document because everyone assumed it was obvious, and they slow things down in ways that turn out to be necessary. When companies looked at AI and said, "This can do the easy work," they were technically right. AI can do a lot of what a junior developer does, at least on the surface. It can write boilerplate, it can complete tasks faster, it can output something that looks finished. What it can't do is care whether any of that output makes sense in context. It can't tell you that the approach you're taking is going to create a maintenance problem 6 months down the road. It can't learn a system by living in it the way a human does. Companies got sold on flashy demos and dreams of slashing payroll budgets, believing the hype of faster and better quality. Instead, they cut away their essential human feedback loops, replacing them with black box software processes that can generate plausible output, but have no hope of ever being able to verify their own work. It's not hard to imagine now how these decisions will turn into slow-motion catastrophes. Entry-level software hiring for 20-something workers has fallen 20% over just the past year. That number might sound like a workforce statistic, but it's actually a systems failure that hasn't fully landed yet. Think about what junior roles actually produce over time. Not just code and completed tickets, they produce senior developers. That's the pipeline. You hire someone who doesn't know much, they work inside the system for 5 years, and they get mentored by people who built the foundation. And eventually they become the people who are the foundation. If you cut that stage out, you don't have a leaner organization, you have a pipeline with a big hole in it. And you won't fully feel the consequences until 5 years down the road, when you need someone who understands why the architecture was built the way it was. But there's no one left who is there. The uncomfortable part is that this was obvious. So obvious. If you stop training the next generation, you run out of a next generation. Companies knew this and did it anyway, because the short-term cost savings were real, and the long-term collapse would be someone else's problem. Thankfully, this collapse has started to show itself way sooner than expected. Today, 2/3 of employees who cut staff to implement AI are already rehiring for those exact same roles. Nearly 1/3 of them reversed course in under 6 months. The workload didn't disappear. The knowledge didn't replicate itself. The pipeline didn't hold. Now let's talk about what happens to the code itself when you remove the human who understood it. Google CEO Sundar Pichai recently noticed that over 25% of their new code is AI generated. The headline sounds like efficiency, but the reality is a different kind of problem. AI doesn't write elegant code, it clones it. It doesn't have the context to abstract effectively, so it adds more and more lines of plausible logic, each individually defensible, but collectively a mess. Research shows that while AI can help complete a task, sometimes 35% faster, it makes the final product 4 times more expensive to maintain over the long term. Not a good trade-off. One developer described it this way: "We've gone from being craftsmen to factory managers at IKEA, shipping chairs that nobody knows how to fix when they break." The global technical debt figure, a total repair backlog for software developed over the past 4 decades, sits at 61 billion workdays. That's according to a 2025 study from Cast Software. AI-generated code isn't creating that problem from scratch, but it's generally accelerating it. Technical debt is not a code problem, it's a systems problem. It's what accumulates when you optimize for output speed while removing the people responsible for coherence. The short-term wins were real. The long-term bill is also real, and it's enormous. And for some, it's here now. There's something else this system depends on that never shows up in your typical product demos. That's accountability. When a human makes a mistake, the system has a response mechanism. They can be retrained, they can be held liable, they can own what went wrong and course correct. That mechanism is not glamorous, but it's foundational. It's how organizations learn. When AI makes a mistake, there's no one in the machine. The error propagates, and in high-stakes environments, it spreads fast. Example. The FDA has approved over 1,300 AI-enabled medical devices as of early 2026. There's a system called adverse event reporting that's now reporting something researchers are calling impactful hallucinations. That's cases where AI makes up structures that don't exist in the human body. There are also many documented cases of surgeons being given incorrect positional data during procedures. On the other side of the credibility spectrum, consulting giant Deloitte was forced to issue a major refund to the Australian government after a $44,000 AI-generated report was found to contain numerous fabricated citations. Also, a law firm representing Anthropic had to admit to a federal judge that its legal filings contained a completely made-up citation generated by its own AI tool. When the world's leading AI researchers and $1,000 an hour lawyers can't prevent AI-generated errors from leaking into critical work, the accountability gap isn't a bug to be patched. It's a structural feature of the technology. There's a quote from a 1979 IBM training manual that's been circulating lately. A computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make management decisions. We had that in writing 46 years ago. We've clearly chosen to ignore it. The last piece of this is the most dangerous because it's the hardest to see. Researchers at the Wharton School have started using a term for it, cognitive surrender. It describes what happens when managers stop exercising independent judgment and start treating the AI's output as the answer. Not because the AI has proven itself reliable, but because checking the AI's work takes effort. And effort is what was supposed to be eliminated. You can see it in the Deloitte example I just mentioned. Nobody caught the fake citations because nobody was really looking. The AI produced a finished-looking document, and that's what gets filed. This is cognitive surrender in practice. Not a dramatic failure of oversight, just a quiet decision to trust the AI's output and move on. Multiply that across an organization, you've stopped thinking as an institution. This isn't new. It's what happens whenever a system becomes a black box. Humans defer to it, stop questioning it, and lose the capacity to evaluate it. And then when the system fails, nobody knows how to rebuild it because no one maintained the understanding of how it worked in the first place. The junior dev death spiral, the technical debt mountain, the accountability gap, these are all versions of the same problem. Every one of them is what happens when you remove a human feedback loop and replace it with something that produces output but doesn't generate understanding. We didn't solve the human intelligence problem, we outsourced it, and then forgot we'd done it. Here's where this lands. McKinsey reports that 94% of companies that invested heavily in generative AI have yet to see a single dollar of measurable return. This disillusionment is real, and it's a $200 billion hole in corporate balance sheets. The organizations that are coming out ahead are not the ones that automated hardest and fastest. They're the ones that held on to the people who understand the foundation. They're the ones still investing in human architects, people who can walk into a room full of AI-generated output and identify what's broken and explain why. The era of blind automation is ending almost as fast as it started. What's coming next is hopefully not a retreat from AI. It should be a correction, but a big one. A recognition that these new AI tools need to be held by someone who understands the system, not used as a replacement for that understanding. The system tried to eat itself. Now it needs people who know how to rebuild it. If you've seen these patterns playing out in your industry, the rehiring, the pipeline gaps, the accumulating debt, I want to hear about it in the comments. What's happening on the ground is more accurate than anything in a shareholder report. If this kind of thing is useful to you, please hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who are trying to think clearly about where all of this is going. And if you want to go deeper, head over to heartlineent.com and sign up for the newsletter. For every topic I cover, I put together citations, source links, and further reading, so you can actually verify what I'm saying and follow the threads that interest you most. The link's in the description. And subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.